Part 6. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 52. Because of Fang Liu's episode, several people were not in a good mood, but when they arrived at the place where the traps were set up, they saw that most of the traps had been destroyed, and there were injured hares lying inside, and smiles appeared on their faces. Lu Ting carefully untied the rope, took out the rabbit, tied it up and put it in the basket, and said to Mu Yangling, "Ling, don't worry, your uncle and the others are in the village, your mother and your brother will not be bullied of. After all, Fang Lu is his own Xiaoi, and Lu Ting can't say it too bluntly." Mu Yangling said, "If she's not afraid that my father will tear down her house, she'll just bully her, You must know that her father loves her mother, not to mention that she is just the little ant who often bullies them. She is the uncle that father has always respected. If she bullies her mother, her father still dares to tear down the Lu family." Mu Yangling has already figured out his attributes. Lu Xian also said, "My aunt is bullying and afraid of being tough. When Shita comes back at noon, I can see that she doesn't even dare to show her face." Lu Yuan thumped him, glared at him and said, "What are you talking about? That's your aunt. Quickly pick up all the prey in the trap and restore the trap, we have to go to another place to set up the trap." Mu Yangling pursed his lips and smiled. A few people went out of the mountain, but they were stopped by Lu Lang, who was waiting at the bottom of the mountain. "Father, Grandpa told you to go home when you come back, don't go to town first." Mu Yangling snorted coldly, stopped in his tracks, and said, "I still have to go to the town to deliver the goods, let's divide up the things first, and I won't go to uncle's place." It was because of them that Lu Ting went back with them like a child like Mu Yangling. In order not to be squeezed by words, he put down his backpack and said, "Okay, let's divide the things here." Mu Yangling installed a big pannier, thought for a while, and then took out two seriously injured big rabbits, and said, "Okay, I want these, and the remaining uncles will be divided." Then he waved to the envious Lu Lang, and didn't go back home, and went directly to the town. Lu Ting sighed and said to his three younger brothers, "I'm afraid we won't be able to follow Ling into the mountains tomorrow." Lu Yuan could only feel his breath stuck in his chest. "Without Ling, what if we encounter wild boars and wolves when we go into the mountains? Besides, some trees are densely covered, and we don't even know the way." "Okay, let's go back and have a look first." Lu Ting got up, took his son's hand and left. Lu Lang complained in a low voice, "Father, my little aunt came to Grandpa and said that our family was dishonest and secretly took advantage of the Mu family but left their house behind. Grandma got angry and quarreled with her, and my little aunt left. I went out to find the village chief and said I wanted them to judge." The four Lu Ting brothers looked at each other, and their expressions were a little ugly. Back at Liu's house, the courtyard was noisy, with more than a dozen heads of households sitting inside, and some children running around among them. Mrs. Fang Lu was sitting on a small stool wiping tears and complaining, while Grandma Lu stared angrily. This sister-in-law. When everyone saw that only the four brothers from the Lu family had returned, they couldn't help frowning. The village head Lu, he asked, "Where's the little lady from the Mu family?" Lu Ting lowered his eyes, bowed and replied, "Ling went to the town to deliver goods. What does the village chief want from her?" Lu he took a puff of cigarette, thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "It's okay." Fang Lu jumped up, "Why are you all right? Didn't you ask Ling to let her take the young people into the mountains?" Lu he snorted coldly, "When did I say that?" "Mrs. Fang Lu, don't misinterpret our meaning." He looked at Mrs. Fang Lu and said, "I think you have forgotten the rules of our Linshan village." Fang Liu's complexion turned pale. "Lu Hedeo, in our Linshan village, there are 68 households, and 67 households owe money to the Mu family. Back then, Shita kindly took his youngsters into the mountains to find food. The youngsters were ignorant and didn't leave him a way out. Since then we have 3 chapters in the agreement, no matter what the surname is, the villagers in Linchin are not allowed to take advantage of the Mu family. It's good now, it's only been a few years. You have the nerve to come to the door and let Aling bring your two boys into the mountain. Fang Lu, is it because you have lived so well these years that you have forgotten many rules? Lu He's words were a bit serious. He glanced at the dozen or so heads of households sitting below, and snorted coldly, "It's fine if Aling doesn't come, after all, it's our side that is breaking the rules, and it has nothing to do with the Mu family. From today onwards, if anyone dares to make such a request with the Mu family again, don't blame us old people for being ungrateful." This matter started with the Big Jian's family, right? Someone shouted. If Lu Ting and the others hadn't gone into the mountains with the young ladies from the Mu family, how could there have been so many troubles? Lu He frowned and looked at Lu Daqian. Lu Daqian said, "Tomorrow they won't follow Aling into the mountains." "Uncle," Lu Xian yelled unconvinced, "it was Aling who wanted to take us into the mountain. She saw the suffering of the children, so she brought us in, just to give the children a tooth-beating sacrifice. I also know about the fact that Aling gave the children a toothbrush for the children in the village, but I don't believe that I brought you in to give the children a toothbrush." Someone shouted, "Aling didn't take you into the mountain before, and the next day you will be there again. There is a small stove for the children in the mountain depression, but I brought you into the mountain, and I didn't see you giving food to the children." Lu Xian said angrily, "How do you know that we don't feed the children? Aling just fed them before. Didn't you just go down the mountain today?" Okay, stop arguing," Lu Daqian said, "it's her kindness that Aling cooks for the children. It's her business whether she does it or not. In short, you are not allowed to follow Aling into the mountains anymore. That's it for the matter. Put down the things in the basket, pack them up and let the children in the village have a taste." Lu Xian's eyes were red, but he didn't dare to disobey his uncle's words and put the things on the ground. It's not that Lu Daqian can't think of a way to distribute it, but it's just that it will inevitably cause trouble to the Mu family. Their original intention is not to trouble the Mu family. If they drag Aling into the water, it will run counter to their original intention. The atmosphere in the yard was a bit dull. Fang Lu muttered, "Aling is so capable, what's wrong with leading us?" Lu Daqian stared at her coldly. Fang Lu Shi shuddered, and lowered his head. His mouth was slightly closed, and he didn't say anything too much, but he felt chilling towards the sister in his heart. Fang Lu was even more annoyed. She made the matter worse because she wanted to force Mu Yangling to take her two sons into the mountains, so that the family would have some income, but who knew that stealing chickens would not be a waste of money? Not only did she not let her, the two sons followed in, and even the nephews couldn't enter the mountain because of the disturbance. In this way, Lu Ting and the brothers still hate her to death? Fang Lu felt that the eyes of the two sister-in-laws staring at her were about to catch fire. Lu Daqian ignored the younger sister, but said to his son, "Clean up all your prey, and greet your uncles well. Forget it, these brothers earned these things hard, save them for Lu Lang's children." After speaking, Lu He was about to get up and leave. Lu Daqian hurriedly held him down, and said with a cold face, "Brother dislikes my family's food. Let's talk about it first." Lu He had no choice but to stay, and the others had no choice but to stay as well. Gritting his teeth, Lu Ting pulled his son over and said, "Go, call me all the children in the village, and I'll set up 2 tables for you in a while." Lu Zaishi grabbed him and said in a low voice, "You are crazy, don't talk about these meat and vegetables. You can eat as much as you eat, and you are not afraid of mother beating you at night." But Lu Ting said, "Didn't they say that we don't follow Aling into the mountains and the children have meat to eat, but we follow Aling into the mountains but the children have no meat to eat? I just let them watch the children eat meat. You can come in later in the kitchen, I will fry 2 pots of vegetables for them, and I will put meat on the children's side, and I will chop up all the prey I brought back today for the children to eat." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 54. Lu Zhao looked at her husband in astonishment. "Are you crazy? If they are so angry, they are not the ones who suffer in the end. But Lu Ting insisted on taking a gamble and asked Lu Lang to call all the children in the village who were 15 years old and under, so that there would be a lot of children. There were more than 50 children in the whole village, and 2 tables were not enough. Lu Ting said, when the time comes, let the children stand, put the food on the table, and let them grab it by themselves. Anyway, there is a lot of meat today, so I'm not afraid they won't be able to grab it. Looking at her stubborn husband, Lu Zhiaxi stomped her feet and said, you used to say that Lu Zhuang was naughty, but I think you are even worse than him. Lu Zhiaxi hesitated for a moment, did not tell her father-in-law and mother-in-law that her husband had anger in his heart, so let's be absurd if he is absurd, it is better than keeping his anger in his heart. Lu Zhiaxi comforted herself in this way, and went into the kitchen to cook. Seeing that his sister-in-law chopped up all the meat, the sister-in-law Lu Zhang couldn't help but whispered, sister-in-law, there are only 2 tables of people, and 1 hare is enough. Why did you chop it all up? This is what your elder brother means, we just listen to it. Mrs. Lu Zhao was the chef in the kitchen. After a while, Lu Lang took a few brothers and sisters to set up the table, ran out and said to the companions who gradually gathered around, everyone go home and bring the bowls and chopsticks. Lots of meat, enough meat. Anyone under the age of 15 who can eat meat comes here. Lu Shui, don't come here by yourself. Remember to call your 3 older sisters together. Do you hear me? And you, bring your younger brother, bring me too, he's 3 years old, he'll always be able to gnaw his bones. There were more than 50 children, the older one was holding the younger one was leading the older one, boys with boys, girls with girls, and in a short while they filled the yard of Liu's house. Grandma Lu looked at them in astonishment, and asked Lu Lang, why did you bring them here? Father said, give them a little treat. Grandma Lu took a deep breath, that's not how you open a small stove. Mu Yangling gave small stoves to children under the age of 10 in the village, but they all went voluntarily. Some children were thin-skinned and did not dare to go. There were only a dozen or 20 children who went every time. Now it is good. The grandson recruited all the children in the village. Half-aged children eat their mother to death, and their appetite is no worse than that of an adult. With so many people, is this going to make their family poor? Lu Ting and his younger brothers set up 2 tables in the main room, and went to the kitchen to serve the dishes in person. One table had 6 dishes, all of which were vegetarian. The children outside also served dishes. There were 5 pots of vegetables on each table, except for 1 pot of vegetarian dishes, the others were meat dishes. As soon as the dishes were served, the yard was filled with the sound of children swallowing, but no one dared to do it first. Lu Xian already knew the big brother's bad idea, so he walked over, clapped his hands and said, you guys eat with your belly open today, the meat is enough, but when you eat, take care of the little ones, do you hear me? I heard it, everyone roared, and Lu Xian waved, okay, let's eat. As soon as Lu Xian gave the order, the children rushed up to pick up meat and vegetables. Those with younger brothers and sisters had to take care of them after stuffing their mouths. The yard was extremely lively for a while. The adults in the main room looked at the vegetarian dishes on the table and looked at each other. In the end, Lu He picked up the chopsticks first and said calmly, eat. Seeing this, the others could only pick up their chopsticks, but the smell of meat from outside kept coming in, and the children's constant cheers, they just felt that the meal was like chewing wax, and that kid Lu Ting was too cruel. People of the same generation as Lu Daqian gave him a secret look, and Lu Daqian ate with the same expression, as if he didn't see their eyes. Seeing their aggrieved looks, Lu Ting's anger subsided a little. In the kitchen, Fang Lu looked at the vegetarian dishes and then at the meat dishes on the table outside, she felt her heart was on fire. Second Grandma Lu snorted coldly, and said slowly, that kid in Tinger has a good heart, He left all the meat and vegetables for the kids, and he didn't even touch any meat in the main room. The sister-in-law taught her well. Grandma Lu glanced at Mrs. Fang Lu, lowered her eyes and said, "The children are pitiful. They haven't eaten a good meal all year round. How can we old people have the nerve to compete with the children for this stutter?" Fang Liashi couldn't take the steps she wanted to take, and competed with the children for food. Although her skin was thick, it wasn't that thick. Today is really a steal, but luckily her grandchildren are also in it, otherwise it would be even worse. When Mu Yangling came over holding his younger brother's hand, this was the scene she saw. The ferocious scene of the children grabbing food made her eyes widen, and Xiao Bowen's mouth opened even wider. The Mu family has never been short of meat, so they have never seen such a cruel scene, but after Mu Yangling was shocked, his heart ached. She couldn't help but squeezed her brother's hand tightly. She has never lived through such a hard life, and the hardship she talks about is just that the family has no money, can't afford medium-grade rice, and can only eat low-grade rice, but there is never a shortage of meat. Even when the mountains are closed for forestation, she dares to sneak away, go to the mountains to hunt 1 or 2 hares and pheasants to fill her belly, so she can't imagine the day when she only eats meat once a year during the Chinese New Year. That's why she feels sorry for those children. But her ability is limited, and she can only help children under the age of 10, but even so, only a part of them are willing to go to the valley with the cheek. So, is she really trying her best? Mu Yangling felt guilty and her eyes were slightly sour. She remembered what her instructor asked them in the military school, wearing this military uniform, how far do you think you can be worthy of her? The students said in unison, defend the family and the country. The instructor laughed and said, this is your responsibility. He looked at them solemnly, and said seriously, do your best to help the people you meet in need. If you are worthy of your conscience, then you are worthy of your uniform. At this moment, Mu Yangling asked himself, have you tried your best? Are you ashamed? 9 years of child life, she has already regarded herself as a child, but is she really a child? She wore the military uniform for 6 years. Did those beliefs and ideals disappear just because of her reincarnation? So what's the matter with her using the memory of the previous life, the knowledge and ability of the previous life? Mu Yangling was ashamed. Xiao Bowen felt that her sister's hand was a little painful, so she looked at her with tears in her eyes and whispered, sister, you are holding it too tightly. Mu Yangling was immersed in self-reflection and didn't hear it. It was Lu Lang who turned around and saw Mu Yangling, squeezed out a bowl of meat and shouted, cousin, you are here. The voice rang in Mu Yangling's ears, and Mu Yangling came back to his senses, let go of his younger brother's hand, and breathed while holding his white paw, does it hurt? My sister will blow it to you. It doesn't hurt anymore, sister, what are you thinking? Why can't you hear me calling? Mu Yangling touched his head, sister is thinking about big things. Lu Lang handed the bowl to them and said, do you want to eat it? I'll grab it for you. Mu Yangling shook his head, eat it, we won't. Looking around the yard, he asked, who is in the main room? The grandpas are all here, Lu Lang said a little unhappy, I guess they are still eating. He also knew that his father and second uncle would not be able to follow his cousin into the mountains in the future. Mu Yangling looked at him, are you full? Lu Lang felt it for a while, and said, I can still stuff it a little more. Don't eat it, bring me the blog post, I have something to do with my uncle and the others. Mu Yangling handed the blog post to him, be sure to watch it, there are too many people here. Although most of the children are good with Xiao Bowen, there are some who don't like Bowen and bully him, and now all the children in the village are here. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 55. The chopsticks had already been put down in the main room, but the children outside were still eating, and they couldn't go out right away, so everyone had to chat. It just so happened that the autumn harvest had just come to an end, and everyone was talking about this year's harvest and next year's sowing. As soon as Mu Yangling came in, Luhi and Ludakian, who were facing the door, saw it. Luhi waved at her and said with a smile, "A Ling is here? Come to uncle." Mu Yangling smiled slightly, walked over, and saluted, "Hello, uncles, cousins." Luhi laughed loudly, "You kid is still so polite. You came back from the town? Where's your father? Did you come back from the county?" "I'm back. He's at home. I'll accompany my brother to play." Luhi knew that Mu Shi didn't care about this matter at all and only let his daughter handle it. He knew that Mu Shi loved his daughter, but he didn't expect to let Mu Yangling be so indulgent. Luhi breathed a sigh of relief, and said to Mu Yangling, "My good boy, I know that it is a good intention for you to bring your cousins into the mountains, but we are peasants, and the most important thing is to cultivate the land, so they will not follow you in the future. It's a mountain, work at home. I know what my uncles are worried about. It's nothing more than fear that other people in the village will come to my house. I really want to thank my uncle for thinking about our Mu family. I didn't think about it before, but I still want to take everyone into the house." Mountain. Mu Yangling said, "Recently, there are more and more rabbits in the mountains, and now there are more and more trends. I used to go to the east after hunting in the west, and then slowly go east. Move, and come back in about 2 months, so that I don't have to worry about the prey being hunted in one place and reducing too much, but in the past half a month, I have hardly changed places, and they are all in the west. A hare that can carry a basket on its back." Luhi and Ludakian looked at each other and said solemnly, "You mean there are a lot of wild rabbits in the mountains?" Mu Yangling nodded, "It's almost a disaster. If you don't catch more in autumn, after winter, I'm afraid it will harm the crops grown in the village. They have never seen rabbits in the mountains harm crops in the fields, but Luhi has heard that those rabbits can dig out the roots to eat when they are hungry, which is not less harmful than voles. That's why I took my 4 cousins into the mountain. Since other people in the village have opinions, why don't uncles divide the 47 households into 5 teams, and send one team to follow me into the mountain every day, and the team that kills the prey, people, but I also have a request." As soon as these words came out, there was no sound in the main room. Ludakian looked at Mu Yangling anxiously, but everyone else looked at her with piercing eyes. Luhi Waiwei sat up straight, "Say it. I brought them into the mountain because I felt sorry for those children, and everyone knows that my Mu family relies on hunting for a living, so the prey you hunt are not allowed to be taken to the town and Mingshui County. If you sell it, you can only keep it for your own family. If you want to sell it, you have to go out of Qilai Township and Mingshui County." Luhi pondered for a while, and said, "You are still a child, so you have to tell your father about this matter." Mu Yangling shook his head, "I can make the decision on this matter, uncle can just rest assured." Ludakian interjected, "Then we can't take advantage of you for nothing, son. How about sharing half of the prey that enters the mountain with you?" Mu Yangling pursed his lips and said with a smile, "Uncle, there are plenty of prey collected in the town and the county. I can't sell them if I want so much. My mother is pregnant now, and making dried meat will smoke her." Mu Yangling thought for a while and said, "How about this, each family will give me half of the peeled rabbit skin every day, how about it?" She doesn't want the rabbit meat anymore, but the rabbit skin can be sold. When the tanning is finished, the old lady will make leather clothes, gloves, and hats for them, so that they can have a warm winter. For such a small request, Lu and the others naturally agreed. Mu Yangling got up and said, "Take out my Biao Ting and Uncle Yuan Biao separately, so there will be 45 households, each team has 9 people, and then count the 2 of them in, and each time they are 2 everyone in the village obeys their arrangements, and I am only responsible for taking them in and teaching them how to set traps and hunt, and leave the management of people to my two cousins. That means that Lu Ting and Lu Yuan can follow the team every time, and they can get prey every time. Everyone knows that she is taking care of her two uncles. There is a difference between closeness and closeness. No one has any objections. Everyone nods. Down. Mu Yangling said again, Widow Liu's family has no grown-up males. When it's her turn, her prey comes from my two cousins. In the whole village, only Widow Lu is the head of the household who is only 5 years old. Widow Lu cannot follow her into the mountain, and things come out from Lu Ting and Lu Garden, so everyone has no objections. The people who came to the Lu family did not expect such a surprise. Even if they were teased by Lu Ting, it didn't affect their good mood. Everyone looked at Mu Yangling with relief, and felt that it was the Mu family who had a kind heart. Seeing that the matter was finished, Mu Yangling got up and said, "Then uncles, let's arrange it. We will not enter the mountain until the day after tomorrow." After a pause, he pretended to be unintentional and said, "By the way, how is the matter with the great aunt? Entering the mountain, will it delay the matter of the great aunt?" "No, no, Lu," he promised, "in a few days, I will take your uncle to Zishan village to see your aunt, and I will go to the village chief to say hello." Lu Daqian's eyes lit up. Lu he is not only the village head of Linshan village, but also the patriarch of the Lu family. If he can be invited to come over, it will be of great importance. Besides, Lu he can also invite the head of the village. Mu Yangling didn't expect such a surprise, and the smile on his face was more sincere. "Then wait for you to divide into teams, and wait for me at the foot of the mountain the day after tomorrow. I'll go back and talk to my father." "Okay, you go back, I'll do the statistics today, and I can divide them up tomorrow, and let your two cousins take people there early in the morning." Lu he got up and sent Mu Yangling out in person. Fang Lu listened to the general idea in the kitchen, saw Mu Yangling rushing out, hurriedly ran over and said, "Aling, you make up your two cousins, why don't you make up your cousin too? Let them three, let's help you lead the team together." Mu Yangling snorted, "I don't like Uncle Zuzi, so little aunt doesn't need to say more anyway, she is only a 9-year-old child, so what if she can be self-willed?" Lu he also shouted, "Mr. Fang Lu, there is no place for you to talk here, let me out." Fang Lu blushed, and was about to say something when Mu Yangling said, "My father is back and is waiting for me at home. If little aunt is unhappy, you can come to my house and talk to my father." How dare Fang Liashi? He could only suppress his temper and watch Mu Yangling drag Xiao Bowen away. Little Bowen walked forward bouncingly, and said, "Sister, Daddy said that he will send me to school in the spring of next year. Then I get up every morning and carry you on my back, okay?" "I don't want it," Xiao Bowen said arrogantly, "I can walk by myself." Mu Yangling patted his head, "I'm going to school next year, so you have to learn a few more words, so that you won't be overtaken when you go to school." Xiao Bowen suddenly said with pride, "No problem, I will definitely take the first place in the exam." Mu Yangling took his younger brother's hand back home, and Mu Shi was sitting in the yard waiting for her. "You're back. Come here and tell Dad what trouble you got into again." Mu Yangling squatted in front of his father, and Xiao Bowen followed suit, squatting with his sister with his chin staggeringly propped up. Mu Shi looked at the big and small in front of him, and the anger in his heart suddenly disappeared. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 56. It's not that she is angry at her daughter for making her own decisions, but just looking at her moist eyes at him, and looking at her innocent and carefree son, no amount of anger will dissipate. Mu Yangling was very curious. "Father, what agreement does our Mu family have with the village?" Mu Shi glanced at his wobbly son, pointed to the small stool and said, "Move here and sit." Mu Yangling hurried over to fetch 2 stools, and sat in front of Mu Shi with his younger brother. Mu Shi said sadly, I wanted to wait until you grow up to tell you, so that you don't get resentment in your heart and look crooked, but now it seems that you are worthy of being the seeds of my Mew family. You are kind-hearted, little at a young age, I will think of ways to help others. Mu Yangling was blushed by his father's thick skin, and Shu Wanyang, who was sitting at the door making clothes, burst out laughing. Only the naive little Bowen looked at his father proudly. Be honest, don't teach the children badly, Shu Wanyang said angrily. Since you want to talk, explain the matter clearly, so that the children will not have any questions in the future. Mu Shi knew that she was talking about his aunt Fang Lu, and his relationship with other relatives was not bad, but with Fang Lu, he didn't even care about his superficial affection, the kind that he didn't give gifts every year. Mu Shi touched his son's head, and said, "It's been a long time since you said it, and you have to start from your grandfather." Mu Shi looked at his daughter carefully, and said, "Aling, you look so good. 7 points like your grandfather, you can imagine how handsome your grandfather is, right?" Mu Yangling opened his mouth wide. Back when your grandfather settled down in Linshan village, it caused a sensation in all the towns and villages. Not to mention those big girls, even the married daughter-in-laws forgot to walk when they saw your grandfather. Mu Shi looked at his daughter regretfully and said, "It's a pity that although your facial features resemble your grandfather's, your skin color doesn't inherit your grandfather's talent. You get dark when you get sunburned. How could you know that your grandfather's face is as white as jade? Even after years of exposure to wind and sun, his skin color still remains the same." Mu Yangling. She touched her face. Is her complexion really that bad? She is only 9 years old now, and although she is a bit darker, her skin is delicate, her pores are invisible, and her face is smooth. She looks so beautiful when she looks in the mirror every day. Xiao Bowen looked at his sister, then at his father, and asked, "Father, then you must not look like your grandfather. Do you look like your grandmother?" Mu Shi's face darkened. "I look like my grandfather." In a word, Mu Yangling's grandfather, Mu Yan, was very handsome. As soon as he came, the hearts of all the big girls in Linshan village and nearby villages fell on him, including Mu Yangling's grandmother Lu Erniang and her aunt mother-in-law Lu Sunyang. In the end, Mu Yan proposed marriage to Lu Erniang, which made Lu Sunyang very unhappy. Fortunately, Mu Yan is not without flaws. Although he is handsome, he has no parents, no brothers and sisters, and he is alone. In addition, he only has a thatched hut at the foot of the mountain to live in, and he doesn't even have any land. However, the Fang family that Lu Sunyang settled down afterwards can be regarded as a village. Good family. Lu Sunyang could only keep hinting to herself that she looked down on Mu Yan and Lu Erniang in this respect. So although Lu Sunyang was jealous, it wasn't too much, but not long after, Mu Yan, who she despised in her heart, bought a large piece of land at the foot of the mountain, and then paid to build 5 green brick and black tile houses. The betrothal gift given was the first in Linshan village. Lu Sunyang's jealousy turned into jealousy, not to mention Lu Erniang's life after marriage is so happy. It is natural for men in the Mu family to love their wives, so Mu Yan doesn't let Lu Erniang go to work in the fields anymore, he just needs to take care of the family's vegetable field and do some housework. When Lu Sunyang was 25 years old, she seemed to be 30, while Lu Erniang, who was 1 year older than her, seemed to be in her early 20s. The two sisters lived in the same village day and night, seeing each other day and night, and that kind of jealousy gnawed at her all the time. Heart of. It wasn't until Mu Shi's birth that she regained the game. When Mu Shi was first born, the characteristics of the Hu people were not strong, but he grew up too fast. At the age of 5, he already had long hands and feet like a 7-year-old child. At this time, his eyes already had some clues. Lu Sunyang was the first to find out, so she spread rumors in the village. At first, she suspected that Lu Erniang was cheating because Mu Shi didn't look like his parents. Does his father want to say that she is a beauty, and his mother is also a delicate beauty. As a result, the Mu Shijun born is handsome, but also too strong, and his facial features are deeper than children of the same age. After the spread, the rumors suddenly started. Lu Erniang wanted to die, but Mu Yan knew everything, because his son looked so much like his father, so he could only admit that he was of barbarian blood. Because the Hu people and the Han people have been at war, there have been a lot of intermarriages between Hu and Han people in recent years. Although the Lu family was angry at Mu Yan's concealment, seeing that the other party had a good attitude of admitting his mistakes, the matter was exposed. But Lu Sunyang was unwilling to let it go. First, she instigated the children in the village to reject and beat Mu Shi, and then the woman rejected Lu Erniang before. Mu Shi's force value is high, and the children in the village rarely beat him, so it is the children in the village who are beaten by him, and the parents naturally have opinions when the children are beaten. He felt that Mu Shi had the blood of Hu people after all, and he was so cruel that he always bullied the children in the village. But Mu Yan and Lu Erniang didn't take the children's fights to heart. When they found out, the Mu family had already been excluded by the entire Linshan village. At that time, Mu Shi was only 7 years old. Since then, he has no playmates. Most of them go hunting in the mountains with his father, or squat in front of the house to play. Lu Ting's cousins came to him to play from time to time, but every time they went back, they would be pushed aside by the children in the village. Lu Daqian and Lu Erkin sensed that something was wrong, and secretly investigated, but they found the younger sister Lu Sunyang. There was internal strife in the Lu family, and they could only swallow the bitter fruit, except calling Mu Yan and his wife and scolding Lu Sunyang. There is no way to order her to stop slandering the Mu family. Lu Sunyang didn't restrain herself just because she saw that her natal family was unwilling to make things big. Therefore, the relationship between the Mu family and Linshan village gradually became tense until the military disaster 15 years ago. In the winter of 15 years ago, during the snowstorm in the north, a group of Hu people secretly crossed the border and went southward, looting all the way. People fled to Linshan village. At that time, there were many young and strong people in the village, but very few people had the courage to pick up things and resist. The 348 people from 48 households in the village almost became lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The old and the young retreated into the mountains. Mu Shi is familiar with the mountains and forests, and was assigned by Mu Yan to lead the way, while he led the village's young and strong to resist behind. But in fact, he is the only one who can contribute, or, if you count Lu Erniang, who was desperately hacking aside with a big knife. When he was carried back, he was hit by a total of 17 knives, and only one breath was left. He alone killed 21 people. He only had time to take a look at his wife and children before closing his eyes. Lu Erniang was already injured, and at this time she was even more distressed. She died holding her husband that night. Mu Shi lost his parents overnight, which was a blow to him, so at that time, he hated the cowardice and incompetence of the people in Linshan village even more. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 57. Mu Shi felt that if they hadn't been courageous, how could his father have taken so many attacks, and even his mother was forced to take up a big knife, so he resented them and despised them even more. But these people are all his mother's relatives, and also his relatives. Mu Shi took them out of the mountain. Linshan village was burned down, and except for a few houses, everything was burned by the escaped Hu people. 33 people died in Linshan village that time, including his parents. Linshan village fell into a desperate situation. In the end, Lu He brought Lu Daqian and others to beg him, hoping that he could bring the young and strong of the village into the mountain, so that he could find a bite to eat from the kitchen mountain to survive this winter. Although Mu Shi didn't like them, he agreed. But the people who brought them into the mountain didn't know how to restrain themselves, and they didn't even let off the cubs. Mu Shi was a hunter, and he was particular about rest and recuperation. What's more, the prey they hunted were not eaten by themselves, but sold in towns and counties. Because there were so many things, the price was kept low. This would undoubtedly deal a heavy blow to Orion and Mushi in Mingshui County. So Mushi just walked away after that year. Lu He was very guilty, and pressed those young people to kneel in front of Mu's house, but Mushi didn't pay attention at all. This is also one of the reasons why Mushi left Linshan village and ran into Chushan. If it wasn't for this incident, he might not be able to save Shu Wanyang by chance. Because he saved Shu Wanyang, he brought her back to Linshan village. Lu He and the old people in Linshan village felt ashamed, so they restrained the villagers of Linshan village and made an agreement with Mushi. Unless there was a danger of destroying the village, they would not disturb the Mu family. It is allowed to ask and coerce the Mu family to take them into the mountains or seek benefits for them. In order to implement it better, Lu He asked everyone not to have any interest in the Mu family. If there is no interest, there will be no disputes. Therefore, even though he can exchange food with the villagers nearby, Mushi always has to go to the town to buy rice noodles. Therefore, although the people in Linshan village are greedy for meat, no one will come to beg or exchange prey. He doesn't even accept prey from Mushi during the holidays. Now, Mushi still has little friendship with the villagers, and they don't communicate with each other at all. Except for going to the mountains and the market every day, he stays at home with his wife and children. In recent years, the relationship between the two sides has eased mostly because of Mu Yangling and Xiao Bowen. The two children often went to the village to play, and gradually became acquainted with the villagers, but this interaction was limited to the villagers and the two children. Mushi and Shu Wanyang rarely appeared in front of everyone. Mu Yangling burst into tears and asked his father, "Then do you still blame them?" Mushi snorted coldly, "It's no wonder." But Mu Yangling didn't believe it. It didn't seem strange. "If you want to help those children, go there, don't worry too much." Mushi touched her head, and said sadly, "Who told us that the Mu family is kind-hearted?" Mu Yangling. Xiao Bowen didn't understand it, but he understood the last sentence. He nodded seriously, "That's right, we are all kind. Mother, look at them quickly, Daddy has taught my little brother badly." Shu Wanyang just covered her mouth and smiled. Mushi said that he didn't care, but he took his daughter into the mountain to investigate again, drew out a safe area, and said, "Don't go in any deeper places, and I don't know if the black bear and the big worm are still there. Let them enter the mountain to be more vigilant, and if there is any abnormality, immediately take them out of the mountain." Mu Yangling nodded, "Father, don't worry, safety comes first, I will be careful." Mushi looked at his daughter with relief. "You have grown up and have your own ideas." Although his daughter is getting more and more disobedient, Mushi is still very happy because his daughter is much smarter than others. At least he hadn't seen a 9-year-old think of doing that. When the time came, Mu Yangling led 11 people into the mountain, and divided them into two groups, one group of 5 people, one group of 6 people. Lu Ting and Lu Yuan each led a group. Mu Yangling took them to the place, said, "Spread out, don't be too far away, but don't be too close, don't damage the vegetation and rocks on the ground. We will set up traps here today, and then I will take you to another place to catch rabbits. Remember, our main target is rabbits. If you see other prey, especially large ones, don't panic, come and tell me. If you yell loudly, I won't have time to save people, you will live and die at your own risk." The 11 people responded softly, and Mu Yangling looked at Lu Ting and Lu Yuan, "Cousins, let's make arrangements. One group will dig traps, and the other group will place ropes." Mu Yangling taught the traps one by one, and then surveyed and guarded nearby. After they were all done, they checked again, checked some traps, and then waved, "Let's go east, be careful of some traps, and pay attention to what I do. Finish, get rid of the traces. You have to remember, we will see the traces of the prey, and the prey will also see our traces, so you must sweep the tail when you leave, otherwise your trap arrangement will be in vain no matter how perfect it is. Speaking of which, Mu Yangling used a branch to gently cover up the traces of people trampled on just now, and when he exited the area, Mu Yangling said, "In fact, hunting is suitable for about 5 people, and it will be a bit cumbersome if there are too many people." Lu Ting and the others didn't speak. There are too many people in the village. If there are 5 people in a group, it will take a long time for rounds, and the strength is limited, and the gains are somewhat. Mu Yangling obviously thought of this, so he asked to be divided into 5 groups. Mu Yangling led the crowd to lie down on the grass. There was a large open grass in front of her. She pointed to the front and asked, "Did you see it?" "What's there?" Lu Ting swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "Rabbit, lots and lots of rabbits." Mu Yangling rolled his eyes, "Of course I know it's a rabbit. I want you to look around. There are many trees on both sides, the place where we are lying on one side, and the river to the east. That is to say, as long as we the rabbit can be caught by 3 sides. Did I ask you to bring all the nets?" Lu Ting was only taken aback for a moment, then hurriedly said, "Bring it." He motioned her to look at the things in their hands. Mu Yangling nodded, "Very well." After a while, the 3 of them grabbed the net and outflanked it. The remaining 2 followed me and walked inside with the sack to catch rabbits. Lu Ting didn't quite understand, the place is so big and the net is so small, how could it be possible to stop it? "Come on, you'll understand after the operation. Rabbits are timid animals, and they will run away if there is any disturbance." Mu Yangling gave them the branches chosen on the road, and the 2 people on the left and right held one in each hand, with leaves on the tail, and grabbed the net to surround them. Sometimes, the branches in your hands should block the rabbits who want to escape from both sides at the same time. You don't have to stop them, just hope that the constant disturbance can scare them out of their courage. Lu Ting and Lu Yuan are both steady people. Mu Yangling arranged them in the back and west, and Lu Dazhuang was in charge of the south side. Lu Li and Lu Yong were the most flexible, so they followed Mu Yangling to catch rabbits inside. "I'm in the south. Uncle Le Biao goes to the west, and Cousin Yang goes to the north. Remember, when catching rabbits, you have to bend your body. The rabbits that have passed you give up immediately. The main thing is to catch the gaps. Today we will try first. If this method doesn't work, I'll think of another one." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 58. Everyone got ready and slowly surrounded the center with the net in hand. Mu Yangling, Lu Li, and Lu Yong bent over to catch the rabbit in the middle. As soon as the person appeared, the rabbit was alarmed and ran around in a hurry. Mu Yangling had quick eyesight and quick hands. The rabbits rushed over and stuffed them into the cloth bags one by one, and grabbed the bag tightly with the other hand and continued to move forward. After all, Mu Yangling had learned Kung Fu, and the experience was there, so he didn't find it too difficult. Lu Li and Lu Yong were a little embarrassed. They have also caught rabbits before, but they can't keep up with the speed. They may only catch once after 3 pounces. In less than a quarter of an hour, the 2 of them were a little out of breath. Mu Yangling shouted, "Go and plug the gap when you're tired, don't grab it, wait until you've calmed down and then grab it." Hearing that Lu Li and Lu Yong walked to the gap on their side, they raised their hands to help drive the rabbit towards the middle. When the 3-sided net was finally closed, the rabbits were all driven to the river. They jumped around the river in panic, but they dared not jump down. Rabbits are afraid of water. Seeing that the range was gradually decreasing, Mu Yangling raised his hand and said, "Stop. That's it, leave 6 people to support the net, and the others come in to catch rabbits for me." Mu Yangling picked up a few big stones to press the corners of the net, and then asked the 6 people to step on the net with their feet and fix it firmly, and the remaining 5 followed her to stand on the side of the net, each with a sack to catch rabbits. There were about 30 rabbits surrounded. It was the first time for Lu Li and others to go hunting with Mu Yangling. Seeing this, their hearts were surging, and they wished they could kneel down with shining stars. In the end, a few bold rabbits fell into the water, but when they entered the water, they flopped around. It was Lu Ting who picked them up from the water. "Okay, everyone, let's rest for a while." Mu Yangling asked people to tie up their pockets, opened a few small holes for the rabbits to breathe, and sat on the side, looking at the grass, and said, "Is this place going to be here in 4 or 5 days? There will be so many more rabbits." Lu Yuan smiled and said, "Rabbits are timid, I'm afraid they will be frightened. By the way, Aling, are there many such grasslands and mountains?" "Not many, we can't go to other places, there are ferocious beasts." Mu Yangling paused and said, "Is there any place with grass that has many ferocious beasts? I brought you here because it is close to the outside, I will take you there later." Pottery rabbit nest. "Aren't you going to town today?" Lu Ting asked. "The business of the Mu family and the restaurants in the town is fixed, and the goods must be delivered before lunch every day. My dad is going to deliver it, and I will deliver it tomorrow." Mu Yangling got up and patted his buttocks, and said, "Let's go, I'll take you to Tao Rabbit's den. There are many trees in the forest and dense forests, don't be too far away, lest I can't see you. If you hear me blowing the whistle, immediately gather around me." Mu Yangling once again reiterated the rules of forest life, and seeing that they had all listened to it, he said, "Let's go." In one day, the group harvested 68 rabbits. Considering that each rabbit was different in size, Mu Yangling asked Lu Ting and Lu Yuan to take them back and weigh them. Sent. In the end, Lu Ting sent Mu Yangling 8 fat rabbits, and Mu Yangling said, "I don't need all these at home. It's still alive. It's the same if you raise it and take it to the town tomorrow." Mu Yangling thought about it, so he accepted it. She waited until the next day to take people to collect the prey in the trap, which was more than the harvest on the first day. After a round, every household in the village ate meat, but maybe it was because of too many hard days. Yes, although there are a lot of harvests every day, many people are still reluctant to eat enough meat, and smoke most of them and hang them up. No one dared to take it to the town and sell it for money. Lu He sat at the entrance of the village and watched. Maybe after the events of the past, Lu He and other older people were very strict with this. And Mu Yangling took them all the way to the east, and the time needed every day was increasing. Seeing that she was working hard, Lu Daqian asked Lu Xian to replace Mu Yangling to deliver goods in the town. After thinking about it, Mu Yangling agreed. She had almost captured the forest in the west. If they wanted to go further east, it would take more time. And the further east you go, the density of the rabbits is also greater. The grass in the forest has been gnawed to only a section, and there is even a place where the grass stems have been dug up and gnawed because of the high density of rabbits. Hungry roe deer. Mu Yangling drooled at the roe deer, and said, "I've been eating rabbit meat for several days. In fact, my favorite food is roe deer meat. It's a pity." Lu Li was puzzled. "Then fight, cousins will help you catch it." Mu Yangling withdrew his saliva, shook his head and said, "No, they are already miserable enough. If we eat them again, the number of roe deer will decrease a lot next year, so let's catch rabbits." The rabbit ate up all the grass, and the dizzy roe deer can only be eaten by other carnivores. If she also eats roe deer, it will be really difficult to see roe deer next year, so let them survive. Now I understand why it is said that the hair disaster will affect the crops. Lu Ting's face was a little ugly. With so many rabbits, if there is no grass to eat in the forest next spring, wouldn't they go down the mountain to eat the crops? Lu Yang's face was gloomy. When did there have so many rabbits in Chushan? The ominous feeling in Mu Yangling's heart grew stronger. What's behind the kitchen mountain? Lu Ting and the others have been to Mingshui County as far away as possible, how did they know? So several people shook their heads blankly. Mu Yangling pondered for a while, and said, forget it, we'll talk about this later, let's catch the rabbits first. So many rabbits were caught, the small ones and pregnant female rabbits were let go, and the rest were caught. This time the harvest was more than ever before, more than 150, but because of worrying about the next year's harvest, this layer of joy was covered with some melancholy. Okay, it's already noon, everyone sit down and rest for a while, we will go back immediately. Lu Ting shouted, scanned the number of people, frowned and said, Yun, where are De Zhuang and Zhu Ziyi? Hearing this, Lu Yun stood up and looked around, and said, it's convenient to go, why don't you come back? Where are you going? Didn't you say you won't let Li Yuan go? Lu Ting was displeased. Walk towards the north, why don't I go and have a look? Lu Yuan was also a little angry. Zhu Ziyi and De Zhuang belonged to his group, the others were fine, but Zhu Ziyi was disobedient. They were the fathers of 2 children, who is 1 year older than him, but it doesn't make any sense. This time he took De Zhuang to go for convenience, and he also said not to stay too far away, but the other party felt that Ling was a girl and was embarrassed, so he took De Zhuang and walked north. It's been such a long time, why haven't you come back? As Lu Yun thought about it, he walked in the direction where Fang Zuzi went just now, and Lu Ting shouted, be careful, tell them to come back quickly, we are going back. Lu Yun responded, but after walking a long distance, he found 2 people squatting on the ground with their heads leaning against each other. He frowned and asked, what are you doing? Even if you pull gold, you should pull it out. Fang Zuzi and Lu Dazhuang were startled, and they both fell to the ground. What's the matter with you? Lu Yun noticed something was wrong and ran up immediately. Fang Zuzi jumped up and opened his arms to stop him. Lu Yun, what do you want to do? De Zhuang and I discovered this thing. What? Lu Yun frowned, what are you doing here? Don't you know we're leaving soon? It's convenient to run so far. Embarrassed, Lu Dazhuang stepped forward to hold Fang Zuzi, and said, Brother Zuzi, since Brother Yun is here, why don't you ask Brother Yun to help, and we'll get 3 points later. Fart, I found this thing, why should he share it with us? Fang Zuzi shouted unconvinced. Lu Dazhuang frowned, and said displeasedly, Brother Zuzi, I obviously discovered this thing. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 59. Fang Zuzi was a little embarrassed, but he still said cheekily, isn't this a slip of the tongue, the 2 of us discovered it together. Lu Yun looked at them with a sullen face, and said irritably, okay, I don't want yours, pack up and go back with me, we are leaving. Fang Zuzi curled his lips, and said disdainfully, do you know what we found? He moved away, pointed to a plant on the ground and said, this is ginseng, and look at the head, at least the year is this. This, De Zhuang and I can eat and clothe ourselves without working for the rest of our lives. Lu Yun looked at the plants on the ground in surprise, this is ginseng? How do you know? Lu Dazhuang touched his head in embarrassment and said, my father was not in good health 2 years ago. When I went to the drugstore to buy ginseng for him, I saw someone selling freshly dug ginseng. I saw that this one looked very similar, but we don't know how to dig it. I'm afraid that the digging will be damaged. I heard from the shopkeeper that if the ginseng is damaged, the value will be reduced by at least half. That's why they have been delayed for so long, and they really have no way to start. Lu Yun also hesitated at this time, this is the legendary ginseng, then why don't we call Ling over, she often runs in the mountains, maybe she knows how to get it. No, Fang Zuzi flatly refused, and said, let her come, so is there any part for us? Cousin, what are you talking about? Is Ling like that? Fang Zuzi snorted, she said clearly that she was at odds with my cousin, if she really wants to call her, not to mention that we will share her share, maybe she will deliberately dig up our things. There is nowhere to cry. Lu Dazhuang frowned, and said in disapproval, Aling is not that kind of person, brother Zuzi, you think too much. I really regretted that it was convenient to come out with Fang Zuzi. If it was someone else, there would be no such things. Lu Yuan waved impatiently, okay, you can make up your own minds, but time is running out, and the hall brother is urging us to leave. Mu Yangling was lying on the grass with her eyes closed, her ears pressed against the grass, listening to all kinds of movement in the mountains. In the warm sunlight, when she was about to fall asleep, there was a sudden explosion in her ear. Mu Yangling jumped up in fright. Lu Ting and others were taken aback by Mu Yangling's actions, and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" Mu Yangling didn't answer, and lay down on the grass again to listen to the movement with a snap. The dull sound passed through the ground and reached his ears. Mu Yangling jumped up after confirming, "Pack up your things and leave, don't make a big noise, there are beasts, hurry up." Lu Ting's expression changed slightly, and he said, "Zuzi and Dezhuang went to make it convenient and haven't come back yet, Ah Yuan went to look for them." Mu Yangling's face was ugly. "Which direction did they go? Didn't they let you go far?" Everyone looked at Lu Ting and Mu Yangling helplessly, suppressing the fear in their hearts. The mountains and forests have always been dangerous in everyone's mind. Without Mu Yangling, they would not dare to enter the mountains. It went well, but they also saw the wolves leaving in the grass, and watched how Mu Yangling avoided the beast. Seeing her face change at this moment, they knew that the so-called beast must not be a jackal or a wild boar, but a bigger one. Everyone dare not even think about it. Because of Fang Zuzi and Lu Dazhuang, everyone couldn't leave immediately, and the team members became restless for a moment. Mu Yangling said in a deep voice, "I'll go find them and come back. You take them out first. Remember, no shouting is allowed on the road. If something happens, blow the whistle I gave you." With that said, she turned around and ran towards the direction where Lu Yuan and the others were. With a gloomy expression on Lu Ting's face, he waved and said, "Let's go." Several people carried their things on their backs and ran out behind Lu Ting. It took at least half an hour to walk from here to the mountain. After running for a while, Mu Yangling saw the three of them arguing about something. He gritted his teeth angrily, ran forward and grabbed Lu Yuan's arm, and shouted in a low voice, "What are you doing here? A beast is coming, let's go quickly." The three of them were startled, and Fang Zuzi jumped out and said, "No, we still have things to do." "Shut up, I brought you in, you have to get out for me, don't leave quickly." Fang Zuzi raised his eyebrows and said, "Who are you lying to? I have been in the mountain for so long, and I have never seen a wild beast. If you want to leave, I will not leave." Lu Yuan also said, "Aling, your cousin and the others found a ginseng plant, shall we dig it out before leaving?" But Mu Yangling didn't talk nonsense to them, and said, "Not far away, there are two beasts fighting. If I'm not mistaken, it should be a tiger and a black bear. Do you want to leave or stay? Come with me and leave me alone. It doesn't matter, when I first entered the mountain, I agreed, either listen to me, or fend for myself, I am not responsible." After Mu Yangling finished speaking, she turned around and left. If they were her comrades in arms, she would have beaten them with a whip. She hated soldiers who did not obey orders the most. Seeing this, Lu Yuan followed Mu Yangling's footsteps without even thinking about it. Lu Dazhuang hesitated for a moment, and hurriedly chased after him, while turning his head to pull Fang Zuzi, "Let's go, Aling can't make mistakes." It has been more than 3 years since Mu Yangling went to the mountain every day, and her judgment will not be wrong. Fang Zuzi's face was ugly. He looked at the ginseng on the ground, then at the three people who were gradually disappearing, finally stomped his feet, knelt down and quickly dug with his hands. Ho ho came a roar of a tiger. Oh my God, Fang Zuzi was so frightened that he fell to the ground, his expression pale, and he looked up again. There was silence in the forest, but he was the only one there. The side exploded. Fang Zuzi didn't even think about it, dropped the ginseng on the ground, and staggered towards Mu Yangling and the others. Lu Yuan also heard the roar of the tiger, and quickly grabbed Mu Yangling. "Ling, you can't leave your cousin there alone, I'll go back and pick him up." Mu Yangling snorted coldly and said, "Don't worry, he is timid and will definitely catch up. Now that he hears the roar of the tiger, he must be running this way desperately. Let's just walk slowly and wait for him." Lu Yuan felt uneasy, not knowing whether Mu Yangling was right or not, but seeing her insistence, he still followed her and walked forward. After walking for a long time, Mu Yangling stopped and looked back. Lu Yuan and Lu Dazhuang also hurriedly turned their heads and saw Fang Zuzi stumbling towards them. When they saw them, they shouted loudly, "Why didn't you wait for me? If I die, can you afford it?" "Shut up," Mu Yangling stared at him with a livid face and said, "If you dare to shout again, I'll give you an arrow. Do you think the tiger doesn't come fast enough?" Mu Yangling glanced at his crotch, turned around and walked quickly. "Hurry up, we have to catch up with Uncle Ting." Fang Zuzi complained, "I am your cousin after all, why did you leave me there?" As he ran, Mu Yangling said coldly, "Didn't my uncle take the initiative to stay here? Besides, there are 10 people here. If something happens to them, let's see if the people in the village don't peel your skin. You should protect the other 10 people." It's obvious." Seeing that he was going to get angry, Mu Yangling said quickly, "I'm going to run fast now, those who can catch up will survive, and those who can't catch up will be caught by the big bug. Not coming back." After finishing speaking, Mu Yangling rushed out like an arrow off the string. Lu Yuan and Lu Dazhuang rushed to catch up. Fang Zuzi gritted his teeth and could only catch up with his breath. He didn't dare to stay. The 4 quickly caught up with the people in front. Lu Ting breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Mu Yangling and the others catch up. He ran over and said, "We heard the roar of the tiger just now. Run out quickly. It should be black bears who fought with the big bug. I'm afraid they will spread here. Let's go quickly." Because of Mu Yangling leading the way and controlling the speed, the group walked out faster, but Mu Yangling still heard louder and louder noises, which indicated that the 2 big things were heading this way. Mu Yangling's face was ugly, and he tore a sack from Lu Ting's body while running, and said to them, "You guys run out, and you will be out after another quarter of an hour. I will take the rabbits to lure them away." "No, it's very dangerous, we have to go together," Lu Ting growled in a low voice. Mu Yangling heard the noise getting louder and louder, and said, "Shut up, can you run as fast as me? Following is just a burden, so run out quickly." He chose the east direction and rushed out. Lu Ting gritted his teeth, stomped his feet and said, "Let's go quickly, Lu Li, Lu Yang, you give us the things, you 2 run out to find the stone, let him come into the mountain and take Ling out." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 60. Lu Ting fled with his people, while Mu Yangling ran all the way east. After running a certain distance, he fished out a rabbit, wiped its neck and threw it on the road. A rabbit that just wiped its neck. I just hope that this fresh blood can attract them. Standing in the forest, Mu Yangling breathed a sigh of relief when she heard the movement coming towards her, then became nervous again, and ran east quickly. If you attract them, you can't lose yourself. Mu Yangling was looking for tall and strong trees while running. After running for nearly 7 or 8 minutes, he saw a tree with enlarged branches and thick branches like an adult. In addition, the trunk towered out of the forest. Mu Yangling thought, "I didn't want to, so I threw off my arms and climbed up." A bear and a tiger are fighting happily. Although each has a winner or loser, but when he suddenly heard such a big movement, he knew that there was a big wave of prey coming. Bears and tigers are not stupid either. They compete with each other, and in the end either you die or I die. Since they have more choices, they are naturally willing to continue living. So the two guarded each other while biting each other and went towards the prey. The nature of animals makes them follow a fresh smell of blood at the bifurcation point, only to walk a few steps, and only find a rabbit that is bleeding out. The bear and tiger were instantly angry. They didn't know that they were designed, but they felt that their prey was too stingy. They only left one rabbit behind, which was not enough for one to get between their teeth, and there was no need for two. There are too many rabbits in the mountains and forests, they can eat anytime and anywhere if they want to eat. So I continued to chase, but when they got to the bottom of a big tree, the two lost the trace of their prey, and even the smell faded. The two hurried around under the tree, and finally the bear howled angrily. Before winter came, it had to store enough prey, otherwise it would freeze to death and starve to death in the forest. The bear attacked the tiger first. Not to be outdone, the tiger bowed its body and roared, and rushed towards the bear. The two hit the bear in an instant, hitting the nearby trees from time to time, either knocking down the tree or being bounced back. For a while, tigers roared and bears roared, and swords shadowed. Mu Yangling was lying on the tree, hugging the branches under him tightly, thinking that if one of them was unsteady and was knocked into the air by the two bottom ones, then there would be no scum left behind. In the end, the tiger was slapped into the giant tree by the palm of the bear. Mu Yangling felt bumped and closed his eyes tightly. Then he heard the tiger's scream of, and quickly looked down. I saw the tiger being slapped to the ground by the bear, already dying. Mu Yangling breathed more lightly, huddled against the tree, and remained motionless. The bear tilted his head at the tiger, and slapped the tiger with his last palm, sending the tiger to the paradise of paradise, and lying down on the ground himself. Although it slapped the tiger to death, it was not seriously injured, and was lying on the ground licking the wound. It also knew that the smell of blood here would attract many enemies, so it simply licked its important wounds, stood up, picked up the tiger and left. Mu Yangling stayed on the tree the whole time, making sure that the bear was gone, then quickly slid down the tree, and ran towards his home without thinking. Only halfway through the run, he met Mu Shi with a livid face, followed by 20 or so young men holding sticks. "Aling," Mu Shi shouted when he saw his daughter. "Father," Mu Yangling ran towards his father, and said, "Father, the bear fought with the tiger and killed the tiger. Let's get out, otherwise it will be bad if the bear comes." Although Mu Shi wanted to teach his daughter a lesson, this was not the time to talk, so he grabbed his daughter and said to Lu Ting and the others behind him, "Let's go quickly." When the group came out of the forest, the whole village, old and young, stood outside waiting. Xu Huanyang held her son's hand tightly with red eyes. When she saw her husband coming out with her daughter, she breathed a sigh of relief and hurried forward with her stomach. Mu Yangling obediently called mother and stood aside. Mu Shi nodded to Lu He, and said in a loud voice, "Thank you, folks. The mountains and forests are dangerous these days. Please try not to get close to them. The hunting matter will be decided after I discuss it with my little girl and the old people in the village." The villagers had benefited from hunting, and now they were a little apprehensive after hearing this, for fear that Mu Shi would no longer allow her to enter the mountain because of Mu Yangling's matter. "It's all Dizhuang and Zuza's fault. Aling told us to leave the mountain a long time ago. If they hadn't delayed us, we wouldn't have been chased by the big bug and the bear, and she wouldn't have had to lure the bear and the big bug away to make bait for us. Yes, it's all the fault of Dazhuang and Zuza. If it weren't for them, maybe we would have come out without even hearing the roar. Aling has been going into the mountain every day for 3 or 4 years. There is no danger at all. He must be aware of it when it's time to move, it's back out." For a moment, everyone turned their eyes of condemnation on Dizhuang and Zhu Zi. Lu Dazhuang is Lu He's youngest son. At this time, he was so ashamed that he wanted to get into the hole, but Fang Zuzi jumped up and said, Fart, why did we waste time? If Aling found out earlier, would it be convenient for us to go? Everyone didn't expect Fang Zuzi to be so thick-skinned, and they were stunned for a moment. However, Lu Dazhuang suddenly ran to find his father. He knew that if the village lost the opportunity to enter the mountains because of them, they would definitely be drowned by spit stars, especially his family. His great-grandfather was the patriarch of the Lu family, until his father was the patriarch, and even his elder brother would be the next patriarch. If it was because of him that his family's prestige declined and he finally lost the position of patriarch, he would die to blame. So without even thinking about it, Lu Dazhuang went to his father and told about ginseng, and he said in shame, "I want to dig out the ginseng, so that the family can have more money, but Zuzi and I haven't dug it before, so we didn't dare to do it, so we delayed its time. Dad, let's tell the villagers about the ginseng as compensation." He pondered for a while, and asked, "You discovered the ginseng?" "It wasn't a pillar. I discovered it and told Zuzi." "Who else knows about this?" "Brother Yun also knows, I told him when he came to see us later." Only then did Lu He heave a sigh of relief, nodded and said, "Very good, so we won't be afraid of Fang Zuzi's objection when we take out the things at the end." Lu He had a feeling of gnashing his teeth. His son knew it himself, it must be Fang Zuzi's opinion to hide this matter, and it must be Fang Zuzi who delayed the time. Although my son has selfish intentions, this child has always been soft-hearted, and he definitely cannot make this decision, not to mention he doesn't know how to dig ginseng. Lu He was very sorry. If his son didn't tell Fang Zuzi how good it was after he found out, he would definitely run back to find Lu Ting, and Lu Ting would definitely tell Mu Yangling. Even if they couldn't dig out the ginseng, they wouldn't delay the time to escape. But the thought just flashed by, and Lu He felt lucky. Fortunately, Mu Yangling was clever, otherwise, if someone died in the forest this time, Lu He, could not shirk the responsibility, and the incident was caused by his son. Lu He took his son to Mu Shi's house, and Mu Shi had to make up his mind on this matter. The author has something to say. "I don't have internet when I go home, so I can only use my mobile phone to upload, but after finishing writing, I can't find my mobile phone at all, and I can't even ask for leave. Went. In order to express my apologies for the delayed update, a new chapter will be added today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 61. Before the village decided whether to stop going into the mountain, another big news came out. The reason why Lu Dazhuang was delayed was because he found a ginseng plant. In order to express his apology, Lu Dazhuang was willing to return this ginseng plant to the public, but the problem was who would go into the mountain to dig it. That was the place where the tiger and the bear had appeared. At that time, the roar of the two fighting was heard even by the villagers staying in the village. Even if the money touches people's hearts, no one dares to dig into the mountains at this time. So Lu He went to Mu Shi and said, "When the wind blows over, I would like to ask you to take De Zhuang and the others into the mountain to dig out the things and sell the money to distribute to the villagers." Having said this, Lu He sighed said, "After all, it's because my family is so strong that it scared everyone and put Aling in danger." Lu He had already planned in his heart that when the money arrived, he would give part of it to the Mu family's father and daughter, firstly to appease them, and secondly because of the reward for bringing people into the mountains. But Mu Shi said, "It's not De Zhuang's fault, it's because my child is too courageous. Another thing is Fang Zuzi's instigation. Mu Shi doesn't like Fang Liashi, nor Fang Zuzi. He was the one who took the lead in bullying him when he was a child. This time, his delay put his daughter in danger. Mu Shi has already made up his mind not to allow Mu Yangling to enter the mountain this year." Up. The village head, "Don't worry, I will take them into the mountain after 2 days when the mountain calms down. Lu He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Mu Shi responded. Mu Shi turned around and went back to find Mu Yangling to settle the score. Mu Yangling was lying on the bed in shame, covering her head with the quilt, while Xiao Bowen sat on the bed obediently, patted the quilt lightly with her little hands, and comforted her sister with actions. Xu Wanyang was also sitting on the side, with the medicine in her hand. She said, "Quickly let me go, I'll rub the medicine for you." Mu Yangling said sullenly under the quilt, "I don't, and it doesn't hurt. Your father doesn't care about the severity of his shots. How can it not hurt? I'm your mother, and you're still shy. Let me go quickly." Xu Wanyang tugged and didn't pull it away, and said angrily, "Do you still want to call you, Daddy beat you up? Don't blame your daddy for beating you. You are too stubborn. You don't run for your life at that time, but you run to lure bears and tigers away. Do you think it's a rabbit? A bear can slap you minced meat. You almost scared my mother to death, do you know that?" Mu Yangling lifted the quilt and said, "Mom, I made a calculation in my heart before, as long as I climb up the tree before they come over, I will be fine. Well, even if I am stubborn and do it wrong, Dad can't hit me ass. How old am I?" Mu Yangling stared and said, "Mu Bowen, why are you laughing? Believe it or not, I'll spank your ass." Xiao Bowen hugged his buttocks with both hands, looked at his mother aggrieved. "Mother." Xu Wanyang looked at her daughter angrily, pulled her trousers, and said, "Take it off for me, I'll apply the medicine for you." Mu Yangling pulled his pants tightly and shouted, "It's really okay, really, mother, I really won't lie to you, Dad is not very strong." Mu Shi came in from the door. Xu Wanyang quickly stopped, stood up and said, "You're back. What did the village chief want you to say?" Mu Shi fixed his eyes on his daughter and said, "De Zhuang found a ginseng plant in the mountain, and I promised to take them into the mountain in 2 days." Mu Shi looked at his daughter and snorted coldly, "I'm here to tell you that you are not allowed to enter the mountain again this year." Mu Yangling opened his mouth wide and resisted, "Why? Dad, at worst, I don't go in and you go deep. I'll be at the peripheral head office, right?" "No," Mu Shi said, "I used to think you were a cautious person, but this time you are too courageous. You dare to be the bait by yourself. Are you impatient?" Mu Shi was annoyed every time he thought of this matter. Why is he so relieved that his daughter went into the mountain alone? In addition to her daughter's excellent hunting skills and scouting traces, it is because of her cautious temperament. From childhood to adulthood, whenever she encountered danger, she would decisively choose the correct way to escape. Mu Shi avoided danger several times because he was with his daughter. Even more cautious than him. But it was the daughter who was so cautious and spared her life that she ran to make bait. This made Mu Shi angry and jealous at the same time. The daughter treated the villagers better than him, the father. Mu Yangling didn't know about his father's thoughts, so he just pestered him and said, "Father, now it's not just for the villagers to live a better life, but to reduce the number of rabbits." Mu Yangling Su murmured, "Father goes deeper into the mountains than us every day, and I must know that there are too many rabbits in the mountains, and there will be more in next spring. When the grass in the mountains is gone, the rabbits can only go down the mountains to eat crops. If everyone's life is not easy, does Daddy think our life will be easy?" Mu Yangling looked at Xu Wanyang's belly, and said, "Mother will give birth in winter, and my little brother will only be 3 months old in the spring of next year. Bowen will also go to school. Dad, I don't want to wrong my brothers." Mu Shi's resolute attitude suddenly relaxed. Mu Yangling took his hand and said, "Father, it's too deep for me to go in without bringing my cousins, so we'll go east and circle around the periphery. What do you think?" Mu Shi snorted twice, and said, "Let's talk about the situation in the forest." Seeing that his tone softened, Mu Yangling was relieved. That night, there were waves of howling wolves in the woods, and a few roars of tigers from farther away. Except for the children, all the adults in Linchin village kept their eyes open until dawn. The few noises heard during the day were enough to scare people's nerves. Mushi also kept his eyes open, feeling as if his heart was on fire. He went to a deeper place than his daughter, and he knew the situation in the forest better than his daughter. If the rabbits on the outskirts were in groups, then in the depths of the forest, rabbits could be seen everywhere. The rabbits inside are not as fat as the ones outside, and the rabbits in places where the grass is scarce may even be hungry and thin. He had seen several traces of ferocious beasts in the mountains, and they seemed to be storing food for the winter. Although the animals had to prepare for the winter in previous years, they had never been so crazy and urgent. Mushi vaguely remembered that his father said when he was a child that the animals on the grassland are the most spiritual, and their perception of danger is much more accurate and earlier than humans. Mushi only thought of one possibility for animals to store food for the winter so urgently. Mushi reached out to touch his wife's stomach, and felt that the child kicked his hand lightly. His wife frowned slightly in discomfort. Mushi felt sore in his heart. His child always couldn't catch up with the good times. No matter what the outside world is like, he will support his wife and children, at least let them have no worries about food and clothing. Mushi made up his mind, so he stretched out his arms to hug his wife, closed his eyes and fell into a light sleep. 2 days later, Mushi found out that the forest was much quieter, so he took Lu Ting, Lu Dazhuang and others to dig the ginseng plant. Fang Zuzi also let go after making a fuss, the reason being that he was also one of the discoverers. Lu He just snorted coldly and didn't stop him. The ginseng plant was still there, and Mushi didn't know how to dig it. Fortunately, he brought a hoe, and there were quite a few people. Slowly peel off the soil, and a whole ginseng plant appears in front of you. The ginseng has begun to take shape, and everyone huddled together and exclaimed, "How old is this? It must be 50 years. I don't think it's worth it. How come it's 100 or 80 years? Blow it up. If it's been 100 or 80 years, why hasn't anyone discovered it in such an outside place?" Okay, we don't understand, we'll find out when we go back to the town and ask. Mushi put away the ginseng and said, "I'm afraid it won't sell for a price if I bring it to the town, so let's bring it to the county." That's right, there is only one medical clinic in the town, and it belongs to the He family. Both their family and us have to lower the price of some food, let alone buy ginseng. I think it's better to go to the county town. Although it's far away, but the choice there are too many. Lu Yuan said so, and everyone agreed. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 62. When the thing was taken back to the village, Lu He, who was well informed, laughed and said, "This thing is at least 100 years old. You take it to the county town, and you are not allowed to sell it if it is less than 60 taels." As soon as these words came out, the whole village became happy. If it is really worth the price, each family can get at least 900 yuan if they sell it. You know, people in the countryside grow their own food and drink. Years, and then the older ones let the younger ones for another 3 years, so except when paying taxes, everyone wants to change money, most of the time the family has no cash. 900 yuan, this is a lot of money. The people in the village were as happy as Chinese New Year, only Lu He's family and Fang Zuzi's family had a strange atmosphere. At any rate, Lu He's family just had a dull atmosphere and regret in their hearts, but Fang Zuzi's family had a falling out. Fang Lu poked his son's head and scolded him, "Why are you so stupid? You should have dug down at that time, even if the digging was broken, it is always worth 30 or 40 taels, and it is better than being scolded and hurt. Now it's better to have no money." Fang Zuzi said impatiently, "Big worms and bears were about to come. If your son didn't run away, why would you stick there and feed them? Let alone ginseng, you don't even have a son. Isn't Aling there? You won't let her block you." Your thinking is too beautiful. At that time, she put down her words and said that she was conceited in life and death, and she turned her head and left without hesitation. Fang Zuzi said bitterly, they are all her relatives. They are kind to Lu Ting and the others. I don't have a good face, mother. Are you a daughter of the old Lu family? Don't be picked up from the street. Your mother, what nonsense are you talking about? Fang Lu said angrily. Mu Yangling, little girl. Fang Lu gritted her teeth, unable to say what to do with her. She could only say, you keep an eye on Lu Dazhuang's family. You and Dazhuang discovered this thing together. If the Lu family dares to ask for more, you will ask for the same amount as them, understand? The square pillar should be lowered. The ginseng was sold for a total of 82 taels of silver. It is said that the ginseng is almost 200 years old, and they went to several pharmacies before deciding on the price. The village head gathered all the old and young in the village together, and said, this thing was discussed early in the morning to shock everyone. There are 68 households in our village, so each family will be given 1 or 2 coins, and the remaining 340 coins will be given to everyone. I decided to buy candy for Aling, and let her be overwhelmed. Lu He turned to look at Mu Yangling as he spoke, and said with a smile, son, don't be disgusted, the money is not much, and it was your big cousin who made the apology to you. Mu Yangling smiled, stepped forward to pick it up, and said, uncle, my father has promised me to continue to bring my cousins into the mountain, but he doesn't allow me to go in so deep, so next time we will walk around the edge of the forest but go somewhere farther away. Hearing that the event of entering the mountain has not been cancelled, everyone is happy. Mu Yangling said, let's rest for another 2 days, and we will go into the mountain when it becomes quieter in the mountain. By the way, uncle, when will my great aunt's business be done? Lu He knew that she was worried about the Malu family, so he smiled and said, don't worry, we have already contacted Ma's family, and the matter has been settled. We only need to wait for the 2 parties to choose a date before officially going to measure and approve the land. You can go see your aunt if you have nothing to do. When Mu Yangling brought people into the mountain, Lu Daqian proposed to go to Zishan village while everyone was grateful to the Mu family. With Lu He coming forward, and most of the clan members coming out of their prime, the Ma family had no choice but to give in, agreeing to temporarily return the recovered land to the Malu family, and wait for her family to take it back 100 years later. Mu Yangling heard that there was a big smile on his face. The great aunt had the field and asked someone to cultivate it in the spring. At least it would be a lot easier in the autumn harvest. Moreover, at the age of marriage in this era, Ma Ziyuheng will live again. We are going to get married in a few years, and the remaining food can just prepare some dowry. Mu Yangling thought that he had gained a lot in the past few days, so he planned to give some to his aunt. Mu Yangling also shared the prey with the hunting team, but the prey sent to the town by her family had to be fresh, and as the hunting distance increased, Mu Yangling could not guarantee to return before noon every day, so the prey sent to the town were all fresh. After Mu Shi came out of the mountains, he handed it over to Lu Xian to help deliver it to the town. As for the hare that Mu Yangling got, he either ate it himself, or gave it to Lu Xian and Lu Zhuang to help him make jerky. Lu Daqian felt that Mu Yangling had done so much for them, just to help make some jerky, and it was just a helping hand. Now these jerky are drying in the big courtyard of the Lu family, and Mu Yangling picked up a basket directly on his back. When Grandma Lu saw it, she couldn't help saying, you can give some to your aunt, but there is no need to give it away. So much, too much, I'm afraid your aunt will be embarrassed to accept it. I know, I'm taking it to exchange things with my aunt, uncle, and grandma. I'm leaving first. Mu Yangling went to the mountain to pick a few big leaves to cover the basket, and then strode towards Zishan village. As soon as Mu Yangling came out of the mountain, Ma Zhang saw him. Ma Zhang was collecting firewood at the foot of the mountain. When he saw Mu Yangling coming out of the mountain, he smiled, it's Aling, come to auntie quickly. Mu Yangling glanced at the firewood under her feet, turned around and asked, "Second Aunt Ma, are you here to collect firewood?" "No, it's going to be winter soon, so we have to start collecting firewood," Ma Zhang asked, looking at Mu Yangling's back basket. "Aling brought something for your aunt again." Mu Yangling put down the basket after thinking for a while, and took out a smoked and dried rabbit from it and stuffed it to Ma Zhang. "Second Aunt Ma, thanks to you for taking care of my aunt in Zishan village, although this rabbit has been smoked and dried, but the taste is not bad, you take it back and try it." Ma Zhang's eyes sparkled, he took the things, and said with a smile, "How embarrassing, but don't worry, your aunt is getting old, and Ziyuheng is still young, I often ask my boy to help them carry water." When Mu Yangling heard this, regardless of whether it was true or not, he took out a rabbit from his back basket and put it in Ma Zhang's hand. "After that, I will ask second Aunt Ma to help my aunt more." Anyway, Mrs. Ma Zhang took advantage of her. She asked Ziyuheng next time. If she didn't help, she would just not give it next time. If she did, what's the point of giving her something more? Mrs. Ma Zhang was pleasantly surprised. In fact, she didn't lie. Although she loves to take advantage, she really sympathizes with Malayashi, so when the family has more time, she will ask the eldest son in the family to carry water and things for Malayashi. Of course, she also had a little thought of getting some benefits from Mu Yangling. "Then second Aunt Ma is busy first, I'll go find my aunt first." Okay, you go quickly." The arrival of Mu Yangling made Malu very happy. Seeing that she brought so many things, she knew that she would bring them next time if she said more, so Malu didn't say much, and went directly to the vegetable garden to pick them for her. A basket and 2 bags of vegetables were brought to her, and said, "The weather is getting cold now, you take them back and put them in the cellar, and eat them in winter."